In the Bible, Paul explains that everyone has two bodies, a physical body and a spiritual body. Mediums use their spiritual bodies when they act as a communication bridge between the physical and spirit worlds. As a spirit speaks, mediums hear the information using the ears of their spiritual bodies, then repeat the information to other physical people. Mediumship is synonymous with the biblical term, gifts of the Spirit. The focus of our show, Making Known the Unknown, is to provide knowledge through the use of Reverend Hewitt's mediumship and Sidney Schwartz's research. The Bible contains the history of psychic events, along with man-made doctrines created by priests centuries ago. This show will explore the untruths which the Bible entrenched into our society. By uncovering these untruths, we encourage people everywhere to think for themselves with a critical mind.
Hello, and welcome to the set of Making Known the Unknown. My name is Tina Tarek. I am the host and producer of this program. As you may or may not have noticed, there are two empty seats next to me. These seats are reserved for two very special gentlemen who will be arriving a little bit later on. These gentlemen are the focus of this program. They, through the information that they have gathered, have put together 25 years of research. The gentlemen that I'm speaking of are Sidney Schwartz, who is a researcher and middle school teacher, and Reverend Carl Hewitt, who is a pastor of a church and a psychic medium. Now, for the past 25 years, these two gentlemen have traveled all over the world seeking information and confirming the hidden agenda of religion for the purpose of financial and political gain through mind control. It would be my great pleasure to share with you clips from some of our shows where we have dared to ask the questions: did Jesus really die for our sins? Who wrote the Bible? Who was Mary Magdalene? What really happens when we die? And what are the origins of homosexuality? In these shows, we also take on subjects like women in the Bible. Jesus was a medium. Sins are profitable, and crop circles. Sit back, fasten your seatbelts, and be ready to take a trip. A trip that will challenge each of you personally to open your minds. I present to you the best of Making Known the Unknown. And this is getting back to the title of our show, or the topic of our show, which is, did Jesus really die for our sins?
Jesus did not die for our sins. He died for the sins of the priest that shouted, "Crucify him," because he was such a threat to the priest at the time, because he had the gift of seeing in the future. It's known as remote viewing.
I've read also other accounts of the Council of Nicaea that these 318 bishops that came to this council all brought their Bibles with them. And their Bibles, again, were not exactly, today we go to, Bible's more or less the same. If you get the same version, it'll read the same. But back then there were differences within them. And this was some of the other things they were trying to iron out, was to come up with a more authorized text of the Bible.
Mary Magdalene was a prophetess or a priestess of the god Isis in Egypt, and she understood the secrets of that society. And when the Bible talks about that she washed her hair, she took her hair and washed his feet. That was one of the ceremonies that was conducted with Isis, from what I understand. And so she was very psychically aware. She understood psychic science very well as Jesus did. And this is probably a bond that they shared. One of the reasons that they probably decided to get married in the first place, because they had this common understanding.
Did you want to add something to that about what happens when people die?
Well, this world that we're on now, from birth to death, is actually a school. And then when we reach a point, we give up the physical body, which really gives birth to the spirit body, and we go into the other kingdom, and we continue learning in that dimension, you see. For truly this proves, as the spirit voices have told me, that being gay, as we use that term today, is not a choice. It's not a choice. It's a natural thing, because the soul in that man's body who is attracted to another male is a female soul. Soul in a woman's body who is attracted to another woman, has become masculinized, and there was never a time that women crossed over. It was men that men crossed over. It was women that did it in the first place, but that was a law of the land set up by the priest. That's all there was to it.
On the whole, you don't see women having a central role of authority at all through the Bible. They're always kind of in a secondary position, partially because the religions were patriarchal and they didn't want the women to be prominent, because it goes back to the conflict between the priest and the medium. The priests wanted total control. They wanted the people to be the intermediaries between the people and the spirit world. But most of them weren't gifted, and therefore the prophets were the gifted people. They were the ones that could hold a two-way conversation. When it talks about in Exodus chapter 33, it says that Moses used to take the tent and pitch it outside the tent, and anyone who had a question would go out to the tent of meeting and ask it to the Lord. Well, that's because they got a two-way conversation going. They would ask the question, and there was a medium there, and the spirit person would speak through the medium and give them an answer. So it was a two-way conversation between a physical person and someone in the other dimension. But the priests couldn't do that. They could imitate it, but they couldn't do it. So they were afraid of the women, and they didn't want the women to be in a place of authority, because it was more likely that a woman was a medium, because they are more sensitive to the spirit world and could bring forth messages. And this is why when Christianity was established and Paul came around, he in the 15th chapter of the book of Corinthians, it talks about a woman must be silent in the church.
My question to the viewers of this program: if the spirit world, the people in the spirit world, spoke to all of these people all the way through that book, why don't they speak to us today? They do. But mediums have been put down, they've been burned at the stake, they've been butchered, they've been killed, they've been hung on the cross. He was a great medium. He was a wonderful medium. And that's what he tried to teach his 12 students in the upper room. It was a seance every single night.
But the thing that's even more dramatic is Jeremiah, because he lays the whole thing right out. And what he says in chapter 7, starting with verse 21, is, "Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, add your burnt offerings to your sacrifices and eat flesh. For I did not speak to your fathers or command them in the day I brought them out of the land of Egypt concerning burnt sacrifices." He's specifically saying Spirit or God did not ask for sacrifices. The priests put it in.
Let me tell you, too, something before we start with this.
Okay.
They said, I'm waiting till we got on the air to do this.
Go ahead.
They said, just as we have been producing these pictures, we're producing very advanced crop circles. We lived here on the planet a long, long time ago, and we want the people that sees these to know how advanced we are, but we want the people to know that we are afraid to show ourselves because we're afraid of the people, because the people they are ignorant. They only use a little bit of their brain. They make guns and bombs. They've got so many religions. People have gone crazy on the planet. We're afraid of the people. but we are leaving what people are used to knowing as their calling cards. So we're leaving calling cards. We are leaving pictures, and we're leaving crop circles. That's our calling cards. And when people gain knowledge on the planet, which they will, after all the turmoil is over with, and people start accepting each other, and all the turmoil is over with here, and peace is on the planet, we will show ourselves. You will see our aeroships, and you will see us once again. We live in the 21st century, in the 21st universe, as well as many other universes. We are coming back to our home planet. The planet, the universe, the Emerald universe, which is our favorite universe. And they said that in the Milky Way, which this is on the edge of the Milky Way, there are 10 billion suns, and this is one of them. Show your pictures.
Okay, I guess we can have the clip.
The body through mind. And speaking of that, everything that we have on this planet today, everything you have in your house, regardless of where it is, was created first in the other dimension and given to us through man's mind. So, way back when they created the Bible, when they created the body, I get the Bible and the body mixed up, well, that is. They realized they had made a mistake when the body was made, and they left no place for the soul. The soul is the modus operandi of your body. Everything dealing with your body is programmed in the soul. The soul is like a computer, just like a computer. And you have, I'm sure that all of you have heard of viruses that people get in computers. Someone sits on their keister and they program something in the computer, and if you're foolish enough to pick it up and program it in your computer, it'll erase everything in there. Well, I got news for you. I don't think I've ever traveled anywhere where I found the viruses as strong as they are in this area. And I'm talking about viruses. This is serious. You see, your soul, as I said before, is the modus operandi of everything about you, even to when Mother Nature calls. And so the virus, the soul does not know right from wrong. It records every single thing it hears. Everything, every experience you have is there. And so when you hear these people saying or creating this boogeyman, the devil, all of that is recorded in your soul. It's done in a way because it is mind control. Governments and religions have taught mind control from God knows how far back, all the way through. This is why we're having trouble on the planet today. Now, in your soul right now is recorded everything you've ever done, not only in this life, but in lives before this. It's all there. So if you are taught over and over again, recycled over and over again, that there is a boogeyman out there, let me quote exactly what was said to me by the greatest teacher that has ever come to this planet. This is a heavy statement for me to say. When that energy appeared to me, I would not accept the fact that it was him. I did not think I was worthy of it. And he kept talking to me, and finally, I told him one day, I said, why don't you identify yourself? And he said, I don't think it's necessary. You should know who I am. I says, but you haven't told me who you are. There's a lot of people out there that could look like you very well. I said, I'm not sure where I want to accept this or not. And so he said, well, we'll have to see what we can do about this. And then it was in 1999 that the picture appeared. This picture appeared through what is known as precipitated art. It appeared on a 3x5 card in the presence of another medium. I do not have that gift. But this young man, I knew him when he was a student back in 1985. That was when I first met him. And he said in a development class for a long time, 13 years I think, and they told him that if he would take a box of 3x5 cards and crayons and other things like that and put in a box and cover it up so there's darkness in there. It has to be darkness because the emulsion, this energy that we're talking about, is similar to the emulsion on film. And you know what will happen if light hits film. Gone. And so the first pictures that came through were like some 6-year-old kid. They got better and better and better and better. And so when the picture came through, everybody, including the medium, was shocked, absolutely shocked. This other young man's face right here in the upper left-hand corner, that is the artist in the world of spirit that did the other. And my being so stubborn and not believing who that was, he made sure that Judas, the one that kissed him, the kiss of death, made sure he appeared in the picture too. And you see, since Sydney is a Jew, the Jewish people don't care about hearing about Jesus because so many of them have been accused of killing him. And so it's not a very a nice name to some of them. And he told me that he had to come through this way to prove to both of us that he's behind our teaching, because the world is going into a deeper depression here of trouble and tribulations and everything imaginable. He said it was religions that caused the war over there in Iraq, because those people think that we're all the devil's people, not of God. And so he kept hammering at me until I finally accepted the fact that it truly is him behind all this teachings. 1 year later he came through, and I guess you'll see that picture pretty soon, of the next picture. And here, for instance, this picture over here, picture of 2 little Indian children, looks like it was done with a camera. No hands, no human hands ever touched that picture any more than they touch this one here. And so we want you to understand that this is one of the gifts of the Spirit. And these gifts go all the way back. It's very possible that some of you people in here might even have some of these gifts and you don't even know about it because you're not cooperating with the other dimension. Going back to the point of your name being called, then they understand that they've got you. I mean, there's a connection made here. And You should follow through on this. Never, ever be afraid. Fear will destroy the energy that it takes to do the work of spirit, do the work of the soul. So let's go back to the soul. The soul is a modus operandi here. It is an energy field. It records everything you've ever done. And this business that there's a devil out there, there is no such thing. So let me tell you, let me quote a few things he said to me. He said, do you accept the fact that God wrote the Ten Commandments? And I said, well, I have a lot of questions about that. And then before I had a chance to say any more, he said, if God wrote the Ten Commandments, he made a big mistake. I says, you're tuning in to me. That's what I said. He says, if God wrote the Ten Commandments, why didn't he write something about the devil and write something about hell? There is nothing mentioned about those two subjects there. None at all. And then he said, if God, this God that religion is created out there in space, if this God created heaven and earth and everything in between, then he would have had to create the devil. And if that is the case, since this God can give you life, take it away from you, why doesn't he tap the old son of a bitch and get rid of him and bring peace on the planet? He used those words too. And so I have been taught a lot of stuff. I've been taught that is absolutely opposite of what you might hear in the church. You see, people, I do not have a belief system. I have a knowingness system. I am not religious. I got rid of all that stuff. It's all man-made. It's all man-made. And since the world is moving into this terrible time here, it has to happen. It has to happen because there are too many people out there spitting out all of this garbage, dealing with, it's nothing but recycled ignorance. That's all it is. Because people have to learn to turn within. Now, turning within, what does that mean? It means that the physical body is now communicating with the spirit here, not out there. And the reason that so many people point up, heaven, God, is simply because the people in spirit operate on a very high frequency compared to ours. We're familiar with the telephones today. We're familiar with all the TV stations, radio stations. Some are very high frequencies, some are low frequencies. You and I and everybody here, we operate in a frequency that would be similar to, but not the same thing as, the AM of your radio. And spirit people operate in a frequency similar to, but not the same thing as, the FM. Notice the two frequencies here. Sometimes you're in your car and there's a thunderstorm. Turn it on AM. You can't hear anything but the static of the electricity in the air. Turn it on the FM, it's clear. So way back when this person was talking to the people and said, I come from on high, or it came to me from on high, meaning a higher rate of vibration. It does not mean up in the sky. Get rid of that stupid expression. The spirit world is intermeshed right here. Now, here's a biggie. For every person in this room, there are 7 entities with you. 7 with each person, regardless of who you are. Some of them knew you very well. Could be brothers, sisters, family. But they're here with you. You see, they can't die. We can't die. None of us can die. The very moment that you are in your last 30 breaths, counting down to 1, the heart stopping. When you get down to 9, 8, 7, right in there, it's there that your soul dislodges itself from here, goes up through the body and comes out the top of the head. You know that soft spot on a baby's skull? That's where it leaves. And it moves up about 15 inches above the head, and there is a cord of energy that has kept it connected to the physical body. And when it moves up about 15 inches, the cord snaps, just like a rubber band would snap. And at that moment, you're standing in another body, a body of energy, a duplicate of the body you had on the planet, but it never looks over 30 years old. And I asked them to explain that to me, and they said that the soul, from the time you're born until you're about 27, 28, 29, 30, it records every day as if it's taking a picture of you. And then when it gets into that period, 27, 28, 29, it stops taking a picture of you. So in the world of spirit, that's as old as you look. Even if you died and lived to be 100, you would be 30 years old in the world. And that world is just as real, and as far as I'm concerned, it's more real than this artificial world that we live in. So, regardless of what you believe, and regardless of what you think you have done in the past, and what's been bothering you, listen, people, you never did anything wrong. You only did it for the experience of it. Now you own it. And when the time comes for you to put aside this physical body, I'm talking about death now, you'll have another body that quick, and you're going to be in absolute ecstasy right there. This is why it was called heaven thousands of years ago. And there you will go on and live, and if there's a loved one that preceded you in that dimension, they'll be right there. They'll be right there when you step over, just as my father was. Now, my father, I think he really believed there was a devil more than there was a God, because everything was the devil, the devil, the devil. And he was an assistant pastor to an old Baptist church. And all of these strange things that happened around me as a kid, it really, he thought it was the devil. And my father, from the time I was conceived, my father moved 8 times in 8 houses in 9 months, because he was running from the devil, because the people in spirit who were going to work with me during my lifetime was trying their best to get through to my father and mother. You know, I'm here, and we knew him before he was placed in the womb. But my father, everything he couldn't see, touch, taste, or smell was the devil. That's all there was to it. So he kept moving and moving and moving. And that first day that I was in school, 6 years old, first day, and Spirit came into the room. I saw them, 3 of them walking towards me. No one else in the room could see them. And they took me, they led me out of the room, out of the class, up on the stage. And at that moment, all of the high school students were waiting in the audience for the president. What's his name? Principal. For the principal to come in and give them a pep talk. In those days, they didn't have any PA system like we have here. And can you picture this little boy, 6 years old, going up there and on the stage and doing a lecture to all of those students for about 35, 40 minutes? And I was in a deep trance. I didn't know a thing about what was going on, but when I stepped off of the stage, the first step, I came to, and there was my teacher and all of those high school teachers all in a huddle right there, throwing these questions at me. How did you learn so much about the Tigris River and the Euphrates? And, they were throwing things. I didn't even know what they were talking about. And when I noticed all these faces of all these kids, students looking at me, their mouths open, about this stupid little kid that went up and gave them a lecture. I mean, it was a terrible experience for me. I remember started crying. My teacher reached out and took me by the hand and led me back to the classroom. And after that, I was treated worse than any sick dog has ever been treated on this planet. And the only friend that I had in school met was a girl. She was my age. Her name was Dixie. And turned out whatever I had, she had it. And she knew things and everything else. And it got to the point after a while they would not allow her in her church, which was not the same church that I was going to. And I wouldn't go to church anymore because I was finding more peace with those people and with the voices out in the woods and places. And just before she was 15 years old, she took her father's shotgun and killed herself. It was then that I quit school and I hitchhiked all over the Southeast, and I went into every building that had a steeple on it, looking for answers. And I never got an answer except in one place. It was at a black church in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I walked in there. I heard music. I thought I heard it on the radio, but it really was, I was hearing it clairaudiently. And I kept walking, and pretty soon I was in front of a building, and the music was also the same music was coming out of that building. I went inside, and from what I heard, I was the only white person that's ever been in that church. And I walked down the aisle, the first aisle here, and there was one over there. I walked down the aisle, and they were singing, "We shall gather at the river." And when walked down the front places, there was no empty seats in there. I mean, the benches all filled. These 5 people in the front row there, they moved right over here in front of these other people, and there they left a space for 5 people for this young boy. And somebody gave me a songbook. I don't know where I joined them in the singing or not, but anyway, when that song ended, the minister came down. He was a short man. He came down and he put his arm around me and he whispered something. What he whispered to me was powerful. He said, "Son, I know you see visions and I know you hear voices. I know it's of God, but I don't know anything about it beyond that." And I just broke down and cried because it was the first time anyone just gave me a little inkling of what's going on here. And then it was about a week or 2 weeks later, I went up there to talk to him again. And when I did, he said, "Son, I never told you those things." You see, it was someone in the other dimension using his vocal cords and voice box to talk to me. Because I was thinking of committing suicide a great deal. Because I was an outcast in my home, in the school. They moved me around as a little kid, several schools, and then when they took me to Duke University and had me tested, my eyes and ears tested, they couldn't find anything wrong with me. I was totally an outcast. My father would have somebody, they call himself a preacher, sleep in my bedroom every single week, and he was supposed to be there to remove the devil out of me. There is no such thing as the devil, people. None. There is no such thing, and there's no such thing as hell. It's all created to frighten the people, to keep them coming because the money's coming in, see. And when I was told to create the church, Gifts of the Spirit Church, I thought surely that it was going to be a spiritualist church, because remember, God is spirit. And so it was going to be a spiritualist church because the spiritualist church has to have a medium there. And they said, no, not spiritualist. The word itself has been tainted. It's going to be Gifts of the Spirit Church as found in the Bible. So it started out at that. And so people have come from, I would all say, almost all over the world, just through word of mouth. And I'm a teacher. I want people to understand that when it comes time for you to go to the other dimension, your loved ones are going to be right there, just as my father said to me that when he died, all of the people that he used to talk about as a kid, which had died before I was born, he said they were all there, and every one of them was trying to talk to me at one time, telling me about my son, which is you. And I was in a little church up in Maine. There was not a soul in that church that I knew I had ever seen before. But this old man went into a trance. My father took over his body and told me all of these things. It was then that my brother, one of my brothers, the youngest brother of his first wife, he hated my guts because I must have took his place because I'm the baby of the second marriage. And his first wife and oldest son died of the flu epidemic in 1918. And I never knew, of course, the half-brother, Urban, he and his mother died the same day, and he appeared. He's appeared to me several times, and there's a picture around here somewhere of him. Oh, he told me one time when I was about 7 years old, and I was helping my father. We were hoeing the grass out of the corn, and he told me, he said, one day you will be a farmer, a spiritual farmer in the future, not this kind of a farmer. He says, you'll be planting seeds of truth in the minds of the people. And I was so young, I didn't even know what the word spiritual meant at that time. And so you notice there that he's standing and he has a tray of some sort of seeds, a plant. This is what I have been doing. I got something else to tell you here. I've been abused awful from the standpoint of churches. They have lectured about me being possessed by the devil and everything. I have taken a lot of abuse. And when I was down here in the 70s and 80s, I did a lot of television, radio work here, mostly at WCSC. And it was here that we had seances. A seance, people, is French for getting together in the presence of a medium to communicate with spirit. That's what that word means. And so we had communication, a lot of it at that time. And I got a message at that time. It says, it said, you will be the guiding star of his existence in the near future. That was my first message. And I will tell you later about the terrible thing that happened to me in Myrtle Beach, because up there, they were listening to the radio down here. They were listening to the radio down here. So we have this on film. We want you to see it, okay? Thank you.
I did a lot of radio and television work in Charleston, South Carolina, and it certainly must have drawn a lot of attention. And the people here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, certainly picked up a lot of information and became very interested in what I was teaching, because I was teaching the gifts of the Spirit. The same thing they taught. The people wanted me to come here and teach the same thing that I was teaching the people in Charleston. So they rented the penthouse, which you'll see at the top of the tower here. It's a large ballroom, and they rented this, and there was quite a lot of publicity, and the place was sold out. So on my way back to Connecticut, I stopped here, and I had never met the people that was in charge of this until that very night. And when I appeared here, my car was surrounded by police cars, and all of the police came out and surrounded my car, and the sheriff appeared there and gave me a summons that if I appeared here and attempted to even do this, I would be arrested and put in jail. And I was so shocked at this that I didn't know what to do. I was also exhausted from so much work in Charleston that I didn't attempt to fight it. And so I wound up going to the house of the people who put this all together for me, And all we were doing was talking about it because they had never heard of such a thing in their life, of people getting together to prevent anyone coming here and even talking or discussing anything like this, because I was speaking from the Bible, the gifts of the Spirit. Something happened to me that night after I left this building and went to the family that put this together. I stepped on something in their yard from the time I got out of my vehicle to the time I reached their house. I stepped on something that went through my shoe, but yet there was no pain there like would if you stepped on a nail or something. And when I got into the house, without thinking, because we were still talking about all the police that went on, I put my foot up this way, and I was trying to get whatever this was out, not even looking. I was not thinking. I was trying to loosen this up, whatever it was. And then the wife of the man that arranged all of this, she started screaming, pointing to my foot. And at the same time, he noticed too. There was a spike all the way through my shoe, and it stuck out about 1.5 inches above my shoe. It had gone through the bottom of the foot up and about 1.5 inches from the top, and all the way through the shoe, through the foot. And I managed to get my fingers underneath of it, just like that. It was a big head to it, just like a nail, but much bigger, between the size of a nickel, the size of a quarter. I managed to pull it out. There was no blood, no water, and no pain. I managed to pull it out, and the woman was hysterical. She wanted to get me to a doctor or whatever, and she was afraid I would get tetanus and all of this, but for some reason or other, it didn't bother me. And I didn't give it a thought that accident was connected with what I was attempting to do. And so I left. I finally left that night, driving home, and it was about 2 days later that I noticed, I gave it some thought, and I noticed there was no scar on my foot, and I couldn't even see anything where it went through the shoe. And I started thinking it was my imagination. So when I contacted the people, they said it really did happen. Then I was told by the voices that it really did happen, but they wanted to make sure that I did not suffer from it, because 2,000 years ago, the great teacher that we all know about suffered a great deal because the spikes went through his feet and hands, and he suffered a great deal. He died for the sins of the priest, because what he was teaching they could not compete with, because he was teaching the gifts of the Spirit, whereas I was attempting to teach the same thing. And the churches on the planet here, they do not want people to understand this, because what they changed at the Council of Nicaea in the year 325 was really, they had taken everything dealing with the gift of the Spirit out of the book and changed it all and put in their own interpretations, because they did not want people to understand that it was all within themselves. They wanted people to think that God was outside of them, and this is what it was all about.
Legal, you're always getting in my way.
Notice this. It says, in my Father's house are many dimensions. This is what Jesus originally said. He said that they took that word out and changed it to, in my Father's house are many mansions. Dimensions. And he said that they changed a tremendous amount of things that he taught. Tremendous amount. But let me go back to the spike that I stepped on. After the car was surrounded by the police, and that experience, I was so shaken by that there are no words to describe it, because I've never been in a problem, had any problems in my life, and to be surrounded by police and with a sheriff there with a warrant for my arrest, I said, my God, what have I done?
And the only thing they said, if you go inside, that sheriff, he says, if you go inside and even speak to somebody in the hotel, I'm going to take you to jail. He had Somers's hand. And, you know, in a case like that, your brain is thinking very fast. And I was like, God, is this the United States? And so on the way, the man said, you know, the people that were sponsoring this, they said, why don't you follow us to our house? And I did. And they lived in a palace, practically. It was a beautiful place. And then from the point of where we parked the car, walking through this beautiful garden to their house, in the back of their house, they had like a Florida room. And that's where he sat, husband sat over there, his wife sat there, and over here was an awful lot of other friends of theirs that they invited. In the meantime, I had this funny feeling with my right foot. It was like a big wad of gum that I stepped on. But how could I step on that, you know, when I had the shoe on? And so here I am, not paying any attention to what was going on. I put my leg up this way, and I was trying to feel why I can't get the sole of the shoe away from the bottom of my foot. And that woman started screaming, his wife. Now, there was a spike. This is plastic, so this is not the real thing. But there was a spike this long. That was all the way through my foot, the shoe, and through the top of, and it was about that much of it was stuck up above my foot. There was not one speck of pain and not one bit of blood, not a bit. I finally got my finger underneath the head of that thing and pulled it out. This woman's still screaming. And she grabbed the phone and wanted to call an ambulance or whatever to get me to the doctor. And I said, the spirit people are telling me here there'll be no harm come to me. I will not need any tetanus shots or anything. And I didn't have to have any shots. I didn't even bother going to the doctor. But 2 days later, no scar at all on my foot. And I heard about this man who had this gift of healing down in Brazil, and I went down there twice. I went there because I was still skeptical. I couldn't believe it, and I saw. And there was no pain there. I went through surgery down there, and there was not one speck of pain and not one speck of blood. This is what some of the people have, the abilities. The surgeons and doctors in the other dimension work through the medium, just as these artists work through the mediums. And I would like to mention this too. These pictures, for instance, which ones we talk? Oh yes, the picture over here, I believe. Yeah. Okay, this may shock you people. This is a picture of Mary Magdalene, which was Jesus' wife, and that is his two children, James and Sarah. And that picture was painted by the lady in the back of the room who was a nun for 25 years, and all during the time that she was a nun, she was painting, but she felt as oftentimes feeling as if somebody's moving her hand over here or over here, even asking, like, I don't even know what I'm doing. But when it was finished, it was a masterpiece. You see, she's being controlled by the artist in the world of spirit. And when I finally met her, I watched her do some painting one day, and standing on the right and standing on the left were two different entities. I recognized them from their pictures in the books, but they were also moving her hands. So she has the gift of painting, and the spirit people manipulate and use her hand and her mind to put it together. So she did that one. And the thing that they want her to do is to create the Garden of Angels. And this is little children, most beautiful pictures you've ever seen of little children. And they're painted to look like little angels here. And she was told that here in Charleston, she would create the Garden of Angels here. And I'm sure you're going to know about that, more of that later, see. But back to this, I was so I call myself stupid that I did not save that. I did not save that spike because I just could not connect that spike with anything that happened to Jesus 2,000 years ago. You see, he wanted me to understand that I only had one spike in one foot, whereas he had a spike in both feet and both hands. You see, because he was teaching the truth, the gifts of the Spirit. And it's the same thing I have been teaching. And the one behind me in the world of spirit is none other than Yahshua bin Joseph, Jesus of Nazareth. I wanted you to know that. Okay?
Thank you, Reverend Hewitt. I think we're looking at just about break time, right? Yes, okay. We're taking a lunch break from 11:45 to 1 p.m. For those of you who are new to this area, unfortunately, this wonderful restaurant was only open for breakfast today. They're not open for lunch. Can you imagine? And we're all here hungry. But if you're not familiar, I will tell you that up and down this highway here, there are many, many places that you're welcome to have lunch at. Also, there was one item that we didn't cover in this segment. Sometimes it's not meant to be. Sometimes Spirit puts us in another direction, and we just have to flow with that and get used to that type of thing, so I'm sharing that with you. When we return from the lunch break, we hope to go into detail, as promised, about A1, who was A1, and how that all came to be. So thank you very much, and enjoy your lunches.